Screech by TarynMcT. Read by Oakshadow5. Chapter 11. Izuku and Hitoshi were standing at the window in the classroom, staring in open horror as the crowd of reporters just kept growing. I don't think I've ever been so glad as I am now that Dad is underground and Papa doesn't change into his present make getup until he gets to school. Seriously? Izuku agreed softly. Can you imagine if we had to walk in with present Mike in all his extroverted glory? The two boys shuddered in unison. I hope the rest of the class can manage to get in okay. It's almost a shame Shota expelled Bakugo. He'd probably explode at the crowd and scare them enough to make them run away. Izuku laughed softly. The two pointed out their classmates as they attempted to get past the press, and laughed when Izuku noticed that Shota had joined the fray to help the students get past the press frenzy. Ida was the first person to enter the class. He had managed to just steamroll past the reporters, most likely due to being a legacy kid himself and having had to deal with press before. Shinzo, Midoriya, how did the both of you get here so early? He asked. Hitoshi snorted and glanced at Izuku, almost as if he was saying, just play along, before turning back to Ida. It's almost as if you've forgotten Zuko can fly. If you can easily hop a building with Uraraka, don't you think you can hop a wall with me? Ah, yes, my mistake. Ida apologized. I should have realized you could fly over... Wait a second, that would be unauthorized quirk usage. Should the teachers find out about that, you could be punished, possibly even expelled. I cannot approve of... At that, both Hitoshi and Izuku lost the battle to remain stoic and started giggling. Relax, Ida. My dad took us in the back entrance earlier this morning. Hitoshi said in between laughs. Izuku nodded and hesitantly added, I've been warned against unauthorized quirk usage already. I don't want to ruin the chance I was given. Besides, I'm scheduled to take a test next week to get a flight permission license. Oh, really? Next week? Hitoshi asked. I didn't think you were getting it that soon. Izuku nodded. Kei and Zashi are pulling strings for me, and it'll be a limited use license, mainly for night flights, but it'll mean I could hop the gates if I wanted. That's awesome. I wish I could go flying with you and Kei once, just to know what it's like. Hitoshi mused. Izuku laughed a bit at that. Toshi, you're too heavy for a real flight. I could do a quick flight, but even then, I wouldn't be able to do anything really fun. He shrugged and continued. You do know that I only weigh about 30 kilos, right? Damn hollow bird bones, was Hitoshi's muttered reply. The two of them were still watching out the window at the press circus, but they still heard Shoto come up next to them. Morning. Hitoshi turned to his boyfriend and gave him a quick kiss. Morning, Sho. Did you make it through the mess out there okay? I have long since learned how to handle crowds like that. Shoto turned fully towards them and gave his best. You're not worthy of breathing the same air as me, look, lasting for about 5 seconds before I broke it, returning to a soft smile. That's not good for much, but he did make sure all of us knew how to intimidate the press. That's... Izuku had to restart his brain. That expression on Shoto's face was just... wrong. As effective as that was, Hitoshi said, I don't like that look on your face. Me neither. Shoto shrugged. I literally only use it to scare off the press. It reminds them that I'm still Endeavor's son, regardless of how I feel about that. Izuku glanced back at the crowd as Hitoshi linked his arm with Shoto. Looks like since he's about to head up to class, probably only have about 3 minutes at most before he gets here. At the others' nods, Izuku went to his desk. He didn't have to wait long. Shota came in about 2 minutes later and started class. They were going to be picking class representatives today. They decided to pick their class reps through a vote, and Izuku stared in horror as he saw he had 4 votes, and Hitoshi had 3. No, came Hitoshi's reply. Thanks for the votes, but no. Yeah, same here, Izuku agreed. Oh, but come on, man, Kirishima said. If you guys get voted in as the class reps, then it's your job. Yeah, Kaminari and Ashido chimed in. I will fight you all, Hitoshi deadpanned. Actually, Dad, permission to take them all out back and throw them repeatedly into a brick wall. You'll have to settle for a cement wall. UA doesn't have any brick walls. Shota answered just as deadpan. You heard him, guys. Anyone who refuses to let me pass on this duty, meet me out back. Izuku snorted, adding, Can you take the ones who won't let me pass too? I think it's bad form to drop people from a few floors up. Sure thing. Come on, either redo the vote or suffer the consequences. It occurs to me, Asui commented, that people threatening bodily harm to those who voted for them are probably not the best picks for a class rep. Both Izuku and Hitoshi nodded and pointed at Asui. The class took a second vote, and this time both Hitoshi and Izuku had 0 votes, while Yaoyorozu had 4 and Ida 3. I can't believe you, Sho. The absolute betrayal. How could you? Hitoshi dramatically cried, grabbing himself on Izuku, with a hand out, pushing away his boyfriend. I stand by my decision. Shota said unapologetically. I almost did it a second time too. Traitor! Hitoshi hissed at him like a cat. Yaoyorozu took that moment to slip into the booth across from Izuku, with her lunch tray loaded with a double helping of rice and chicken. What are they being dramatic about now? She asked Izuku. Oh, Shota voted for Toshi to be class rep. Toshi took offense to that. He snorted. I see. Would now be a bad time to state I was one of the other votes? Yaoyorozu teased Toshi. I'm surrounded by traitors. Turning to Izuku, Toshi demanded. Who did you vote for? Not you, don't worry. I actually thought that the way Ida and Yaoyorozu took charge of the voting process was really leadership-worthy, so I voted for Yaoyorozu. Thank God. At least my brother knows better than to vote for me. And I didn't vote for you either. My vote went to Yaoyorozu for the same reasons. He added. Hitoshi, how many times do I have to tell you to call me Momo? And now you too, Midoriya-kun. Yaoyorozu is too long for casual conversation. She smiled and took a bite of her lunch. Okay, Momo-kun. In that case, please call me Izuku. I actually prefer to Midoriya anyway, Izuku admitted. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I'm thinking of starting a class group chat. Do you want me to include that information for everyone to know? That's okay. I can tell them in the group chat when it gets created, Izuku mumbled. When Hitoshi elbowed him in the ribs, Izuku repeated. I can tell them, you don't have to. Better, Hitoshi said and finally started in on his lunch. The four of them continued with their lunch and conversation until a sudden, loud alarm started blaring. The other three started to evacuate, as the alarm said to do, with Momo dashing off to try to organize the mess the students had become. But Izuku had collapsed in pain, clutching at his ears, trying with all his might to block out the sound. Hitoshi and Shoto dropped next to him, trying to help him, but not knowing how. Izuku was crying, just barely keeping himself from screaming in pain, and Hitoshi could see blood starting to drip from his ears. Shit, he directed towards Shoto. I thought his quirk was transformative, not mutation. Shoto shrugged and placed his own hands over Izuku's, and then covered them in ice, trying to muffle the sounds of the alarm as best he could. He does have hollow bird bones, right? I think we should just be grateful he's not screeching right now. Hitoshi hugged Izuku, and a few moments later, Izuku passed out, still bleeding from the ears. Izuku woke up to what sounded like muffled speaking, and he remembered the alarm that had been blaring in the cafeteria during lunch. Wincing, he reached up to feel his ears, hoping to all that was holy that there was something covering his ears and that he hadn't suffered from hearing loss. How pathetic would that be, a deaf owl? Thankfully, there were indeed bandages over both ears, so there was slight hope for him that his hearing wasn't going to be affected long term. Zuku? Huh, that sounded like it could be Hisashi. Was it Hisashi? Maybe he should open his eyes. That might help in identifying who was talking. Yep, it was Hisashi. Hey, Izuku whispered to him. Wow, or did he? Izuku scowled. He couldn't hear himself at all. Fuck, I'm deaf now, aren't I? He moaned. Hisashi laughed a little at that. No, you're going to be just fine, he comforted Izuku. The bandages are pretty thick. I doubt anyone else would be able to hear through those at all, so the fact that you can just shows you're going to be fine. Oh, okay, thanks. Izuku felt the bandages on his ears again, wondering how long he'd have to have them. Out of the corner of his eye, Izuku saw Shota and Recovery Girl walking towards them. I'm going to check these bandages, Recovery Girl said. I'll put new ones on if needed, but you should be good to have them completely off by now. Izuku nodded. I have a question, Shota stated. Hitoshi brought it up earlier, and I need the clarification too. I thought your quirk was transformative, but this seems like a mutation. Well, sort of? Izuku paused as Recovery Girl looked on his ear, muttered about how it looked good, and walked back to her desk to do some paperwork. My hearing and eyesight, I guess, are both enhanced at all times. I can consciously change if my vision is day or night, though. And of course, I have hollow bones too. And your hearing, is it always cranked up that much? Shota asked. Well, no. Yes? I mean, it's always better than a normal person's hearing, but I can make it even sharper. If I really focus, I can pick out individual people's heartbeats from an adjacent apartment. Do you have any mutations that protect your ears from loud noises? With a screech like yours, I would assume you would be deaf by now otherwise, Hisashi pointed out. After all, you know I am. Izuku shrugged. I'm not sure. Maybe? Loud quirk-related noises don't bother me, only normal loud noises. Like Bakugo's explosions are his quirk, so it never really hurt my ears, and same for my screech and your voice. Izuku winced. I was in town once when you let loose on a villain. You were loud, but I think I was the only one there that day that didn't have ringing ears afterwards. Continuing, Izuku said, and I'm okay, normally, so long as noises don't get above a certain volume or frequency. Police sirens are really close to the limit I can really handle, so I don't like to stay around when they have their sirens on. But the alarms today were just too loud and too high frequency. Izuku finished in a whisper, rubbing his ears at the memory, even though they no longer hurt. We'll need to see about getting some ear protectors put into your hero costume visor, Shotai added. I think Higo has something like that in his, so it shouldn't be difficult to have it added to yours. I have something like that in my headphones too, Hisashi added. Proper ear protection is essential. Izuku nodded. Why did the intruder alarms go off anyways? Freaking vultures. The press broke through the barriers and set off all of the alarms. Ooh, we get a bit more detail about Izuku's quirk. He has a resistance to quirk-induced noises, but not normal noises. It makes so much sense. Like, of course it would have that resistance. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed chapter 11 of Screech, and I see you all next time. Bye!